My name is Emily, and if you're watching this, I guess you're here because you're curious about my story. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to sit in front of a camera and pour out something this raw, but something inside me says it needs to be spoken, like if I don't let it out, all the lessons and the pain and the strange kind of beauty I found will just dissolve back into silence. And I can't let that happen because this journey, as terrifying and exhausting and humbling as it was, gave me back my life. Gave me back myself. So I want to tell you about it from the beginning, from the moment my old life broke apart, to the moment I stumbled back into the world. Not the same woman who left, but someone entirely new. I guess it really began with my divorce. I won't go into all the messy details because honestly, reliving them isn't something I want to do, but I'll say this. When you share your life with someone for years and you believe in that bond, and then one day it's gone, it doesn't matter how much you saw it coming, it feels like you've been hollowed out. My marriage had been crumbling for a long time. Small fractures that became deep cracks, and finally there was nothing left to hold us together. When the papers were signed, I thought I'd feel free. I thought I'd feel relief. But what I really felt was empty, like the silence inside my own home was louder than any argument we'd ever had. I spent weeks in that silence. I went through the motions. Work, chores, eating meals I barely tasted, scrolling endlessly through my phone just to avoid thinking too hard. My friends tried to help, they invited me out, but even sitting across the table from them I felt distant, like I was watching life through a foggy window. I started to realize that if I didn't do something, if I didn't shake myself awake somehow, I was going to lose more than just a marriage. I was going to lose myself completely. And that thought scared me more than being alone ever did. That's when the idea of going away, of leaving everything familiar behind, came to me. I don't even remember where I first thought of Montana. Maybe it was an article or some random photo that popped up on my feed, but the image of those mountains stuck in my head. Vast, rugged, untamed. I told myself I needed space. I needed air that wasn't filled with reminders of who I had been. I needed to walk into a place where no one knew me and where the only thing I had to face was myself. So I booked a flight. I bought some gear, even though I didn't really know what I was doing. And a week later I was standing at the edge of a trailhead, staring at the kind of landscape that makes you feel both incredibly small and incredibly alive. First, it was exhilarating. The air was crisp, sharper than anything I'd breathed in years. The trees stood like guardians, their silence heavy but comforting. I felt like I could just keep walking forever, that maybe the further I went, the more I could shed the layers of my old life. I had a backpack, some snacks, water, a small tent. I wasn't planning on being gone long. Just a couple of days. But life, or maybe the mountains, had other plans for me. Somewhere along the way I took a wrong turn. I didn't realize it at first, not until the trail markers disappeared and the ground beneath my boots didn't look like a trail at all anymore. I should have turned back immediately, but I told myself I could handle it. I told myself I'd find the path again if I just kept going. And for a while I believed it. But hours passed, and the woods grew thicker, and the sun started dipping lower, and that's when panic started to curl its fingers around me. There's something about being lost in the wilderness that strips away all the illusions of control you think you have. First I was just frustrated. Then I was scared. And then, when I realized I had no signal on my phone and the food in my pack was barely enough for a day, that fear turned into something heavier: despair. I remember sitting down on a cold rock, my hands shaking, my breath coming too fast. All I could think was, what have I done? What was I thinking, coming out here alone, thinking I could handle this? The night was the hardest part. The cold seeped into my bones, and every sound in the dark felt like a threat. Branches snapping, the low whistle of the wind, the rustle of unseen animals. I barely slept, just curled myself into the smallest ball I could manage, wishing for morning. When the sun finally rose, it felt like a lifeline, but it didn't erase the truth. I was lost. Completely, terrifyingly lost. The next day I tried to retrace my steps, but the more I walked, the more disoriented I became. Hunger gnawed at me. My water ran low. I could feel panic pressing down on me, whispering that I was going to die out there. And that's when something unexpected happened. The fear broke me open, and underneath it, something else came pouring out. Memories, emotions I'd been avoiding for years. I thought I was just fighting to survive the wilderness, But what I was really doing was facing everything inside me I had been running from. I thought about my marriage, about how I had silenced myself for so long just to keep the peace. I thought about all the times I swallowed my feelings, told myself I was fine when I wasn't, let someone else's version of me become more real than the woman I actually was. Alone in those mountains, stripped of comfort and safety, I couldn't hide from any of it anymore. The tears came, the anger, the grief. I screamed into the trees, I begged the sky for answers. And then, when the storm of it passed, I sat in a quiet so deep it felt sacred. For the first time in years, maybe ever, I heard my own voice inside me. And it told me to keep going. Each day became a battle. Not just with the terrain or the cold, but with my own thoughts. Some moments I wanted to give up, to curl up on the ground and let it all end. But then I'd remember a face, a moment, a small piece of beauty from my life. My mother's laughter, the way the ocean smells at dawn, the warmth of a cup of coffee on a winter morning, and those memories kept me moving. They reminded me there was still something worth holding on for. I don't know how many days passed. Time blurred out there. But I know that gradually something shifted. The fear didn't disappear, but it stopped ruling me. The hunger was still sharp, but I learned to manage it, to let it sharpen my focus instead of breaking me. And the silence, the same silence that had once felt unbearable back home, became a companion. I started to realize that the mountains weren't my enemy. They were just there, vast, indifferent, eternal. The real enemy was the part of me that believed I wasn't strong enough, that believed I wasn't worth saving. One morning I woke up and felt calm. Truly calm, in a way I don't think I had ever felt before. I was still lost. I was still hungry. But I wasn't afraid. I looked at the sun rising through the trees, and instead of seeing it as another desperate chance to keep going, I saw it as a gift. I felt gratitude for the light, for the breath in my lungs, even for the struggle itself, because it was showing me who I really was. When the rescuers finally found me, I almost didn't believe they were real. I had been walking along a ridge, and suddenly there were voices calling my name. Hands reaching out, people in bright jackets moving toward me. Relief flooded me, but so did something else. A strange reluctance. Because in those mountains I had been stripped bare, broken down to nothing, and then rebuilt from the inside out. Walking out with them, I knew I was leaving behind the woman who had been lost, not just in the woods, but in her own life. Now, sitting here telling you this story, I can say with absolute certainty that I am not the same Emily who boarded that plane after her divorce. I'm not the same Emily who felt small and voiceless in her own marriage. I am someone who has faced her deepest fears, someone who has sat in the darkest silence and learned that it doesn't have to be terrifying, it can be a place of truth, of healing. I am stronger now. I am calmer. I am ready to live a life that feels real, a life that belongs to me. If you've ever felt lost, whether in the wilderness or in your own heart, I want you to know that you are not powerless. The journey through that fear, through that pain is brutal, but it will show you parts of yourself you never knew were there. And sometimes, when everything is stripped away, what's left is exactly what you've been searching for all along. That's my story. That's how I found myself in the mountains of Montana. How I was broken down and built back up. And if sharing it helps even one person believe they can make it through their own wilderness, then every step I took out there was worth it.